Hi, Shalom Aleichem. This is Yehuda Levin. Motzei Isur Chag. It's already Thursday, which is a very special day in my family's history. It will go down in Mir Hashem. There's the day of the Chasuna of my son Simcha Zisel, Halevi Levin, and his Kala Malka Erlinger, the oldest daughter and child of Rabbi and Mrs. Yaakov Erlinger, prominent family in Toronto, a Rebbe, and the following from the very prominent Erlinger Mishpacha originating in Switzerland, with Chashuvim in Eretz Yisrael, in Denver, etc. And I want to wish a mazel tov to the entire extended family, the Erlinger family, the Levin family. Ba'oshuv laHashem kol tak muloi alai. For us, Hallel did not stop at the end of Sukkot, and Isur Chag continues. The time that you're hearing this broadcast of 11 at 11, which is heard each and every Leil Shishi Thursday evening at 6:20 a.m. radio out of New York, New Jersey environs, we will be well into the celebration of the Chasuna. And I want to wish each and every one, Klal Yisrael, Simchas Bayu, Mir Hashem, all those who need Zivugim. The Chedush Yerim says that a Baal Simcha is somebody who can be mashpia, he can effectuate Simcha. And although the main Baal Simcha, of course, are the Chassan and Kala, it doesn't stop there. There's also the Baal Simcha of the parents. They're very much Baal Simcha. It's very special for them, their halachic ramifications, and therefore I want to take this opportunity to wish each and every one of you a Hashem Yimali Kol Mishalis Libchem L'Toiva, that you should send refuahs and shuas and everything that everybody needs in terms of parnasa, in terms of nachas from the kinder, and everything else good for Klal Yisrael, Ach Tov Yisrael. What did Rabbi say? A little later on in the program, we're going to do a Tishrei wrap-up of some of the Divrei Torah that I was zeicha to say over the last days of Sukkot, and certain connections between the holiday and our particular Simcha. But at the beginning of the program, we're going to begin with the political happenstances, which is a cornerstone of this program, and the reason that I do this program. Chaim Tov Shalom. As I mention each and every week, please become a partner, a shutef, in this program by being mefarsim. The fact that this program exists on the radio, do a chesed to your friends and neighbors, let them know about this program, let them know that there's a video of this program that can be accessed on our YouTube channel, which is Levin, Levin, 1111. And of course, most importantly, is the hotline number, 641-715-3900, extension 247656. Again, 641-715-3900, extension 247656. In the it's very crazy, and it's getting much crazier department, there's a video that can be seen on the internet of a nice, sweet little Adel teacher in England who's teaching 6-year-old children as an assignment. And you see her and you see the children. She's giving them an assignment. She's telling them that there's an imaginary prince. I think his name is Prince Harry. And the Prince Harry falls in love with one of the manservants who is attending to him. And he wants to propose marriage to this manservant. And these 6-year-olds are given an assignment, and you see it on the video, I saw it myself, to write a proposal letter from this imaginary prince to his attendant. And they draw pictures and they write how they love, etc. And she says, listen, we have to train the children now because this is the reality of life. And she's smiling and saying it all sweet. This is called conditioning and brainwashing. England is just a little bit in front of us. It's coming to a theater near you. But we'll continue to fiddle while Rome burns in so many ways. So many organizations and so many political schwitzers. They're all fiddling and fiddling away. Everybody's just interested in Geld über Gott. And I'll say this day in and day out, week in and week out. And you say, why? Why will I say it? So first of all, it's a halach in Yeridea. When a pot is being pilot, it is giving off tam from the walls of the pot. It cannot be bolea. It cannot absorb. So by speaking out constantly against these terrible anti-religio-cultural happenstances, we continue to maintain a purity. The story that I've mentioned from this forum on several occasions. During World War I, the Chavetz Chaim was forced to run into Gullus. He came to a certain town, and the first week, Shabbos, he came out of shul, and he saw Chil Shabbos, he promptly fainted. The second Shabbos, when he saw Chil Shabbos, he didn't faint. And of course, he was tremendously impacted and hurt and upset, but he didn't faint. So he immediately called a asifa, a gathering of all the Frumer Yidden in town that he could assemble in the shul, and he gave a fire dika drasha about Shabbos. And he explained that since I see I'm becoming desensitized, I have to counteract that desensitization process by being meicha. And that's what this program is all about. This program, for me, it's a macha. For you, my dear listeners, it's educational. Again, we want to instruct and teach people how to analyze the cultural happenings and the devolving culture, the news, current events, from the lens and the perspective of Torah values, the hashkafa of the Gedol Yisrael of yesteryear. And if we pick up one new person, each and every broadcast, who understands and who will effectuate some differences in his behavior in his household, this will be the reason that I'm putting myself further and further into debt on credit cards each and every week to do this program. And I'll be happy to do it. And I'll be happy to be Neudel Schar Keneged Kulam for all those from Aguda, from Satma, from Lubavitch, from Bobov, from Bells, from the OU, from the Young Israel, all the Schwitzers, the writers, the newspapers, the Hamadiyas, the Yateds, the Ami magazines, etc., who are not doing. I'm very, very happy to be the fulfillment of the Sefer Hasidim that says, if you pick up a mitzvah that nobody else is doing, Noitel Schar Keneged Kulam. Right? This is not something that I'm jealously keeping to myself. I'm more than happy that each and every one of you should become a partner in this. You can be a partner in this by telling people about the program, by telling people about the hotline number, which is 641-715-3900, extension 247656. You can become a partner by speaking to your Rav, by complaining to your Rosh Yeshiva, your Rebbe, your Mashpia, by calling up Aguda and saying, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you complaining on that? Why aren't you representing us? That's what this program is all about. And that's what this program and your humble servant will continue to do until literally we're tapped out of money. May I and Yovi Ezri, I'm hoping in Yirtzeh Hashem, I'm confident, I'm batuach, that before that happens, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give me the eventuality, the potential, the ability to continue to fund this program. This is not a money-making endeavor. And again, I repeat it again, ad infinitum, ad nauseum perhaps. There are kanoim out there. There are people who spend money on all kinds of things having to do. And this, which is a tremendous impact, because it's so chashuv and it's so real, It's cutting edge. It's where the tire, where the rubber hits the road. It's a very, very lonely struggle. Let's get right on to it. So that's what's happening in England. Back in New York City Council, there was recently a vote on the budget. The budget has allocations, new or old, higher numbers, certainly not no numbers, of money that goes to Mishkav Zacha organizations. And your representative in mine, the erstwhile Chaim Deutsch, and the Beckischer-wearing Councilman Yeager, whose wife tweets congratulatory messages to the Mishkav Zacha organizations. That's right, the Yeager who marched around 2007 or so, thereabouts, with Fernando Ferrer, who was his overlord when he was working for him. And Ferrer, the Bronx Borough president, was trying to run for mayor. And Yeager, good old Kalman Yeager, representing the Torah community, the Hasidic community of Borough Park, marched in the homosexual parade, with or without his Bekisher. You understand? Yes, we'll mention it again and again, because it's obscene, and we want to show you what you're zeicha to. You see, ilu zachinu, if we were zeicha, we wouldn't have this kind of representation. You understand? Where's the Torah's Hashem machkimas pesi? Torah's Hashem is supposed to make wise the simpletons. Where was the wisdom? Where was the wisdom of our gedolim, of our rabbanim, of our mashpiyim, of our Torah askanim, if such a thing exists? To question Yeager on these things, to question Deutsch on these things, to hold them responsible. Where are they now? Listen to what just happened. There was a vote on the budget, on some sort of budgetary matters, and our two Frumaken, forget about the rest of all the guys, the Levin from Wiensberg, the Oisvaf, or the Brad Lander from the edge of Borough Park, all the other, the Mushchosim hilarious, who voted for the Shmutz, who voted for the budget with hundreds of thousands of dollars or more for Shmutz. But what about our two Heimies, our two Heinrich, that they voted? Does this have anything to do with you and me? I'll say it again and again and again. There are representatives, there are shlichei tzibur, midolei micha oida oida. If we are not moichetz, like we agree, we admit. Is anybody going to strain their fingers to call them? Is anybody going to see Chaim Deutsch or Yeager on the street or in their office and say, listen, I'm embarrassed, it's disgraceful, you should have voted absent, you shouldn't have been there for this? In effect, yeah, but it was buried and there were so many important things and you have to give along to get along and you have to do, if not, we won't have money for our moistness, because Hashem can't provide for our moistness if we don't kiss up and vote for all the homosexual funding. You understand? Think about it. We're totally desensitized. It's a new year. It's Parashas Bereshis. A new start, Rabbi Say. The rest is up to you. Believe me, after 120 years, you think when you go up, you can't imagine that there might be a din v'cheshbon that's thorough enough that they'll actually ask you, why did you vote for these people who are doing these things? Al kavoidi loy machisim. What motivated you to vote for these frum people when you've been told, when you heard Levin, the Meshugana, ranting and raving for years and saying about all the schmutz? And now the schmutz is out there. People know more. All the years I succeeded in raising the issue to the fore to a significant extent, I and a handful of others. So people do know. They don't really care. And I keep on giving that timeless mashal. If they would charge you $25 to make the extra garbage pickup on Pesach, you have to get rid of your chametz from your garbage cans, you would pay it, but you would promise, I'd never vote for de Blasio, I'd never vote for Cuomo. Taking $25 out of my pocket. So with $25, you won't vote anymore. But you'll continue to vote for Deutsch and Yeager and Levin and all the rest of the Oisvarfen on all levels of government when they're voting and funding actively legislation and organizations that are mulei shmutz, that are hepech, that are antithetical to God and His Torah in the most serious way, Rabbi said. All right, very good. Rabbi say, there was a time not so many years ago, and there are still Amaratzim out there who think, the Democrats, they sind treif. They stand for sure, but the Republicans, they're family values people, they're good, they're conservatives. A long time ago, especially in New York, Republicans have been prostitutes and whores and harlots, no better than the Democrats. Roiv Ruban shall Republicans that also have no chance of winning prostitute themselves on the issues of abortion, on the issues of homosexuality. Let's give an example. A little while back, two election cycles ago, there was a guy named Loda who was running against de Blasio in the first election. Loda, who's the head of the MTA, the Transit Authority, was putting out advertisements. I was in a doctor's office that had a TV, and I saw the advertisement, or in a hospital or something. And Loda was saying, what, do you have to vote for him, for de Blasio? I'm just as pro-gay as him. That was his advertisement, the guy's Republican. I'm almost sure he had the conservative line as well. And that brings us to the next point. The Conservative Party. Today, I placed a telephone call and left a message for Michael Long, who I know for over 40 years, or around 40 years, is the chairman of the New York State Conservative Party. And officially, the Conservative Party is against the schmutz. But for the years already, they've been endorsing people like Loda. The last woman who wrote, I forget her name, it's like a name like Kalakakis or something like that, from Staten Island, a Greek-American woman. She ran for mayor. She supported all the schmutz. Conservative Party endorsed her. And now, just got word, and saw a newspaper article, an interview with Molinaro, the Republican candidate, who's also the Conservative Party candidate, that he says, I've evolved on abortion, I've evolved on gay marriage, it's the law of the land, I'm a Kabbalit, etc., etc. Let the word go out from this little paltry radio program. If there's 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 listeners, whatever it is. And if you want to get a mitzvah, just spread the word. It's usher, I'm telling you. It's not just me. Many poskim, many rabbanim signed that people who support the schmutz agenda, who support euthanasia, who support abortion on demand. So Molinaro doesn't support euthanasia as far as I know, assisted suicide. But he's far gone on the hashkasa. He's far gone on various aspects of the abortion. It is prohibited to vote for these people who are antithetical in their positions to Torah values. And it's worse, Kol Hashem, because the Tovim Sheba'umas, the religious Catholics who are now engaged in a civil war because their Pope is a fifth column, a Trojan horse, who was elected by the College of Cardinals. They pushed through a guy who's destroying the church. Then the last two popes, Benedict, who's Cardinal Ratzinger, who was the underpinning of Pope John Paul II, who preceded him, he was the intellectual underpinning. They were at least nominally strong on family values, on morality. This Pope is Shreklach. There's a civil war going on. And the Tovim Shebu'umas are fighting it tooth and nail within the Catholic Church. And they're writing about it in their internet sites, in their magazines. It's open. There's an insurrection going on. And I'll discuss that in a little while, the implications to us. But that compounds the Chil Hashem when we blithely, like a horse with blinders that doesn't see to the right or to the left, continues, oblivious, to vote for the Cuomos, to vote for the de Blasios, to vote for the Chaim Deutsches and Jaegers without a commitment signed by them at this point, that they're not going to embarrass us. Worse, forget about embarrassing us, embarrassing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, disparaging HaKadosh Baruch Hu with their votes. It's forbidden. And you heard it here. It is absolutely forbidden to assume that you can vote for the Republican or even for the conservative, because too many times they're playing kutchin you, muchin you, and footsie with the lowlifes, and these people are no better. Now, philosophically, which is worse? Cuomo, who you know is pro-Hashchas and everything else, or Molinaro, or there were others who get the conservative line, I can't even walk into a voting booth and vote for the conservative line for judges. Not that they'll get in, but I wouldn't vote for them. Why? Because it could be, I have no way of researching, it could be the ISO judge, the guy's running, is also a pro-Hashchasa lowlife. The conservatives are worse than voting for Cuomo. It's worse. Why? Because Cuomo, it's evil. This reminds me of a Misa. There was a guy, Jeff Wiesenfeld, an activist. He's an FBI agent, and he represented Governor Pataki. He's been around for a long time already. He's in his 60s now. You hear him occasionally on Jeb Brenner. He's a Schwitzer, a tour. And at that time, he was with Governor Pataki. And I had come back from Eretz Yisrael. It was around 1994 or something like that. And there was a whole tumult about partial birth abortion. And Pataki was saying, who had been originally conservative, but like everybody else, like Republican conservatives, he becomes an oisvav. And he was saying we have to change the national Republican platform to make it a big tent, to allow in the pro-abortion people, et cetera, et cetera. And at that time, they were tumbling about partial birth abortion. That was when it first came to the fore. What is partial birth abortion? When the baby in the last trimester, the last few months, has come out fully formed. Sometimes it could be mom's coming out of the birth canal, and you pierce its head to crush its cranium, and you suck out the brain matter. That's a ritzicha mamish that Patrick Moynihan, the late senator, and Mayor Koch, who were no tzaddikim, were pro-abortion, said, this is not abortion, this is murder. And Pataki was making sounds like in the negative direction. So I came out against him. So Wiesenfeld gets on the phone, he says, you want to have Cuomo? You want to have a Cuomo, a Mario Cuomo? He said, this is not Arkansas. This is what he told me. Here it's other. Either you're going to, I said, I'd rather have the lowlife Cuomo, not to vote for him. I'd rather have a liberal lefty where I know that we are a loyal opposition than to be co-opted and lulled into a sense of false security that I'm voting for a Republican conservative who holds the same oisva for I, but he disguises it with the title Republican conservative. And that yisoid is a central yisoid. The conservatives, at this point, the party is more evil through benign neglect and turning the other cheek to the immorality than the liberal Democrats and the Cynthia Nixon lesbians, etc., etc. That's where we're holding. So don't fool yourself. When you go into the voting booth in November, in 1 month from now, there is nobody you can vote for. You have to assume everybody, Republican, conservative, are all becheskes oiswaffen. So you say, oh, but we're going to lose all the power. All the Schwitzers are telling us, excuse me for another l'chaim. All the Schwitzers are telling us we'll lose our whole thing because the politicians see if we vote. Do a write-in. Do a write-in. Write George Washington. Write Abraham Lincoln. Do a write-in. Or go in there and don't vote. Just pull the lever. So you signed in. It counts and chveisvos. But chas v'sholem al toshis yodcha im Russia liyais edchamas, do not lift your hand on the voting lever to pull it down for rishoyim. You become a shutef with them. It's like you're saying false testimony. Stop. Genug shame. Moving right along. Let's see where we're holding. Rabbi say we're making rapid progress here. Let me just see the notes. Okay. Now you're going to hear something you won't hear anywhere else. For sure. What is the hashkafa? What's going on here? What's going on that we don't have a choice? That the Republican conservative is the same oisva from Family Values Matters, or he's enough of an oisva. In other words, maybe he's not so extreme. He doesn't hold from transgendered bathrooms. He doesn't hold, and Cuomo holds from transgendered bathrooms. So God needs you to be the Fazog and say, since he's the lesser of two evils, this lesser of two evils garbage is a sakana. If somebody came over and kicked your wife in the face, and another person came over and bashed your wife with a baseball bat and put her in the hospital, and they're both running for governor, I'm sure you're going to go to the voting booth and you're going to say, for Klal Yisrael, I have to pick the lesser of two evils. So they were evil to my wife. One smacked her in the face, and the other one hit her in the bed. So I'll vote for the one who smacked her in the face, because I have to do for Klal Yisrael. God needs you. Klal Yisrael needs you to do that. That's your interpretation of God. That's your interpretation of Klal Yisrael. Seid nicht kein Ox. Seid nicht kein Pferd. Stay at home. And if you want to go and vote, put in a write-in for one guy, and then just leave. Finished. Or pull the lever and don't vote for anybody. So you signed in that you voted and finished business. What's the hashkafa here? I'll tell you what the hashkafa is. You won't hear it anywhere else. None of the people who know how to learn 1,000 times as much as me, and are much bigger Yerushalayim, and they're much bigger Bali Chasodim and Bali Avoda, and you won't hear anybody saying it. You know why? Because nobody thinks about the sugya. It's an arcane. It's a favor from the sugya somewhere that nobody put any koiches into it. But you know what? I had a Rebbe named the Kasher Virov, just for this one thing. I had a Rebbe named Rav Avigdor Miller. I had a Rebbe named the Debretziner Rov. I had a Rebbe named the Shom Ritzion Balacha. Now, most of these people did not know nearly as much as I knew. But they knew enough as the Ziknei Yisrael of the Dorsha Ovar. They knew kosher, kosher, chazet treif, chazet treif. They knew that in general. And Rav Avigdor Miller got into the prote protim. He really knew. He did research. He knew what was going on, and he had big insights, just like he did in many other areas of Yiddishkeit. And I developed these things based on the fact that the Sklener Rebbe, Yibod L'chaim, Shavuot Shalema, Yisrael Avram ben Shena Rachel, I think, Shena Rivka, Shena, Shavuot Shalema Tech Shachal Yisrael. He signed a letter that was signed by the previous Kasher Virov to me, calling me a Shtucha D'Rabbanan B'chol Asa V'Asa, Rav Avigdor Miller, in the book. And the Rav Avigdor Miller authorized biography of Rav Miller. There's a full page that a letter he produced microscopically to Rav El Yisvei, in which he said, Kol Dibur Dibarti Moisez Manrab, that everything Yehuda Levin says, he wrote this in 1983, is what I spoke to him. So basically now it's almost 40 years later, 35 years later, 40, 35 years later. So I can tell you what the hashkafa is. The hashkafa is Tzefania 6, that everything evolves around the Jews. And when there's a tragedy somewhere in Yehupitz, in China, wherever it is, Amarti, Achtiri V'Tikri Musa, because it's all about us. The Rebbeinu Shalom created the world for the Klal Yisrael. And what happens is supposed to be a lesson to us, a signal to us. So if we're shown we don't care, so things get so bad that we don't even have a choice to make anymore. That's what this is all about. We should be having a pachat b'chodim, not like Agudas Yisrael a few years ago in Maine, when they had a plebiscite before homosexual marriage was ruled by one vote. Kennedy, also Lieutenant Sadin, Justice Kennedy, who retired, and he was the one swing vote who legitimated homosexual marriage. I don't envy what's going to happen to him in the world to come. So this is before that, a few years in Maine, they had a plebiscite, they had a vote, and by 53-47, they defeated a homosexual marriage type thing. Now, Gouda was issuing peon statements. Listen to the dumbness. Listen to the foolishness. This is gewaldig. You see, the American people doesn't want it. Instead, they should have been crying. They should have been having a fast day. We should have fasted tiny shows until Chatzos, and they should have brought down 50,000 people on a Sunday, like they did for other things. They should have brought them down on Manhattan to say Tehillim. And when the secular media asks why, they say because in Maine, there was a 53-47 vote, almost tipping in favor of homosexual marriage. It was narrowly, that means 47% of the population was voting for homosexual marriage. It was because of this stupidity, the verstoppte cap of these Agudisten who put this out. Why are they verstoppte cap? They're much smarter than me. They're more acumen. They're more connected. They're more l'shem shamayim than me. Everything. But why is verstopte kept? Because of the errant, mistaken, historically proven wrong, errant Rabbi Sherrod doctrine of kissing up to the Rishoyim and not making a big issue about the moral issues, as we've said many times, and I keep it here always. It's always here in my dining room to hold up to you the Rabbi Sherrod book, and you turn to the chapter inside that deals with the askanas about the moral issues, and you could read all the stuff. I'm not manufacturing it, I'm not saying it. The stupidity, the wrongness was all there. It's not nice to talk like that. It's not nice to call it stupidity. You're right. There's much worse words for this. This wasn't the philosophy of Moshe Feinstein, of Yaakov Kamenetsky, of Aaron Kotler, of Lezer Shach. This was from Rabbi Sherrod, and it's followed by the Agudistant, and Hashem makes like this. There's a saying by muscles, you don't use it, you'll lose it. It's the same thing in Ruchnius. If you don't have a sensitivity, you don't use the sensitivity, and you go with stupidities, you become further mired in stupidity. And this is what the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh said, and I'm repeating it again and again. He said it, Afani holech imcha b'keri. He said, you think it's happenstance what's going on? So I will make punishments that you will not make the connection anymore of cause and effect. You will lose your bechira, you will lose your seichel, you will lose your Torah's Hashem machkim especially, and that's exactly what's happened. And that's why I could tell you that the reason that we don't have a person to choose from between Cuomo and the other, and the Molinaro, two often, de Blasio and the Streptococcus, or whatever this Greek woman's name was. Excuse me, I can't remember her name, because or Jim Loder before that with de Blasio. The reason we didn't have a choice is because Satma is busy together with Josh Melman's coalition from Flatbush, together with Agudat Israel, in kissing up to them Geld über Gott. Hashem says you don't kiss in the Irva in Yisrael in New York City, New York State, where there are hundreds of thousands of Fruma Yidden. I won't even give you a choice. I'm giving you, in effect, the back of my hand. Now, is there anybody who's saying Gewalt, Gewalt? Is there any Rosh Hashiva, any Rebbe, any Mashpia, anybody who's saying this besides Yehuda Levin? No. Am I proud about it? I'm saddened by it, but it doesn't take away from the legitimacy of what I'm saying. That's what it is. It surrounds us. Now I'm going to tell you a tiefer zach that's going to sound more way out to you. But after 120 years, you'll come up there, they'll say, this guy Levin, Nitna Navul Shaitim, he was your shaita, he was telling you something, and you had a chance to hear it, and you had a chance to spread it around, and you had a chance to impart it to your family, and to your friends, and to your circles, and you didn't do it, and therefore you are a posheya. That means listening to his program makes you negligent when you don't act on it. It's a baskol of sorts. This is what baskol is all about today. We don't have a big baskol coming out of the sky. We hear somebody say something that Hashem wants us to hear. You're listening to this radio program because hashkafically Hashem wants you to hear this. He wants to try that you should absorb it, that you should cognate over it, you should understand it and accept it. What in the world does it have to do with us that there's a civil war in the Catholic Church and this Pope Francis each and every day is worse than the next day? He's making now synods and meeting for World Youth Day in the Vatican, and he's having special sessions and special groupings of lesbian, gay, transgender, queer youth, which the religious Catholics are going out of their minds, and priests are in open rebellion and writing, etc., etc. What's going on? So the answer is, it wasn't so many years ago. When I was down at a press conference, it was like 20 years ago, something like that. I was down at a press conference when they wanted to kick the Catholic Church out of the UN. It has this NGO status, non-governmental organization. It has a certain status. And the Catholics are the ones fighting for morality and keeping a standard. They wanted to keep the Catholic Church out. This is negayah to us. In the world of nations, the community of nations, if the Catholic Church wouldn't be there to storm and everything else, it would just be some of the Arab countries. We need the Western civilization represented by the Catholic Church to speak out for morality. It's not, unfortunately, it's not Israel who's doing it. You understand? Israel, they boast, and Netanyahu coming to boast about how progressive they are to the gays. And Netanyahu says this is also leading this in. Chil Hashem Oim V'Noir. I don't care how wonderful a spokesman he is and how inspiring he is in certain things he does. He's an oisva when it comes to this, because he was a personal nayev. He used to be pictured in the Italian newspapers with his shiksa strumpet there years ago. He's an oisva. Now, Rabbi Sai, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. The revolution, the civil war going on in the church, if we would be showing that we cared enough about morality, and Hashem would allow the big boy on the block, the Catholic Church that represents 1 billion people, etc., to continue to be strong and to be decent and good and positive on the morality and do the heavy lifting. But the more that we get schwacher and schwacher, the trickle-down effect is heard all over the world. All kinds of different things are happening. You understand? You're not going to hear that anywhere else. But that's what it's about. And guess what? It could be that we should be davening that the conservative forces within the Catholic Church that are pro-morality should be in the ascendancy, and they should be able to rectify and maybe get rid of this Pope and get back somebody, a shikol normal. What? We should this and that. You see, you don't know. And I have a background in this stuff, and I have shimmish. I want to tell you something. When I suggested to Avigdor Miller, he authorized giving an award to a Catholic bishop and an auxiliary bishop, an assistant to O'Connor, because at that time they were standing up a shtickle to Cuomo, and they weren't going to give him the Catholic rituals to marry a Cuomo, the father. There was another time, there was the Moon newspaper, the Mooney newspaper called the New York City Tribune. They don't have the English one anymore. They still have a successful Hispanic one, Noticias del Mundo. And Avigdor Miller had one of the publishers of the newspaper, Mooney. He had him in his Thursday night share to give him some kind of recognition. Because when Miller understood we need to make alliances even with Oidei Avodah Zarah, if they're standing for morality, because they are the big boys on the block and we need the alliances. That was the reason he had me support Buchanan. That outraged Klal Yisrael. But who do I care? The Klal Yisrael that had visceral knee-jerk reactions, or Avigdor Miller was his galant to sugi ba'amkis and he knew what was going on. I carried the water and I carried the banner of Rabbi Miller proudly. And now it's a half a lifetime later, 30 years, and I have that much more experience under my belt. And this is what it's about, Rabbi Sai. But I'm telling you with the Catholic Church, I'm telling you, when there's a Galach that speaks out, the Galach who speaks out on morality does so in part because some of us are fighting for morality. And the weaker we get, the more fadarbin they get. It reflects back to us. Now, you ask everybody, how do you know Avigdor Miller, Das Yochid? Yeah. So I'll tell you again, I have answers for everything. My great uncle, the late great Rav Usha Zalka Rand, Zechronu Levracha, who's laying on Har HaZeisim, not far away from my Rebbe, Rabbi Chana Zechovitz, and from Rabbi Avigdor Miller, and from Rabbi Freifeld, literally maybe 10, 15 graves away on Har HaZeisim. Rav Rand was very involved years ago in helping in writing a book, writing a sefer about for Ezra's Torah, maybe for Rav Henkin. Anyhow, Rabbi Rand told me, and I think I heard also from the Shion Metzion Balacha, the late great Rav Shlomo Zalman Braun, that in the late 1800s, in the very late 1800s, or maybe the early 1900s, they started to first have mixed swimming. That means the Gentiles in Hungary, there wouldn't be mixed swimming. And if you see the pictures of the bathing suits that women wore then, some of those bathing suits are more tzniistic than Borough Park and Crown Heights for sure, ladies are wearing today. Dresses. Their bathing suits were more tzniistic. You understand? There was separate swimming. By the Gentiles, there was separate swimming. Okay? And when they first started to get progressive and have mixed swimming, the Minchas Alaza and Gedolei Rabbanim in Hungary signed on the same Kol Kairos written in the Hungarian language together with the Galachim to try to fight it. Woo! Oh, you see that? That's right. That's right. We make, so what Reb Miller was doing was not his own invention. It goes back. It goes back. The same way we went to the Roman Oivdei Avodah Zarah, and they would send delegations of Yidden, of Tanoim, Amoraim, to chan for them, to kiss up to them for the benefits of Klal Yisrael. There's almost no bigger benefit for Klal Yisrael than the morality. Okay? You heard it here, my friend. You won't hear this anywhere else. Yes, I'm very proud. Yes, guy with the Kedusha. Okay, moving right along. Here, a Trump policy that unmarried diplomats in the United States don't get visas for their lovers, their partners who are not married to them, whether they're heterosexual girlfriends or homosexual, same gender. So who's making the machor? Trump is not saying something against homosexuals. He's saying if you're not married, then the diplomat is here, but the partner doesn't come along. And he says, listen, it's the law of the land in America, homosexual marriage. Either you get married in your own country. If they don't recognize homosexual marriages, you can get married here. You have until December. If not, you got to leave the country. He's saying the same thing about shacking up with an opposite gender, with a lady who's not married, a man with a lady. But the homosexuals are screaming. The homosexuals are complaining. It's bigoted. It's homophobic. This and that. This Trump who marched, there's pictures of him with a gay pride banner. He marched into one of his rallies when he's running for president, who got on 60 Minutes right after he was elected, before he even took office, and said it's settled law, gay marriage. I'm not going to try to turn it over. This Trump is far from a tzaddik. He's a quasi-oisraf on these things. But they're attacking him, the Mishka V'Zacha, because you see, the Mishka V'Zacha play a game. Like, we only want to be equal, equivalent with the heterosexuals. But here there's equivalency. Trump is saying, if you're not married, get married, or you don't automatically come to the country because you're a boyfriend or a girlfriend. No, that's not good enough for them. It goes back to ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, they used to say like this: a woman is for procreation, to have children. But the purest, highest level of love is man on man. You have to have a young boy. No, you didn't. That's where the word pedophile and pederasty come from. No, they didn't force the young man. It was 12, something like that, or 14. He had to be maskim. If not, they would penalize. They were very cultured. You can't force him against his will. They would read him mind. They would give him gifts and everything else. They would train him in Mishkav Zacha. By the way, in Hanukkah, the story of Hanukkah, Rabbi Stolper has, based on Rabbi Stolper, Pinchas Stolper, who used to be from the OU and the head of NCSY. He has sworn in English on Hanukkah from Hutnis Torah. He says clearly that part of the Hanukkah celebration that we have coming up was the defeat of the Greek culture. The Greek culture had seeped its way in with the playing naked in the gymnasia, and the Jews, like the boxers, the Prachi Kahuna, the young Kohanim used to go. What do you think? There wasn't homosexuality around there? Absolutely. That's why I have a video here. That's why I have a video that says that part of the Nitzachon of Hanukkah was the Nitzachon against Mishkav Zacha. And Reb Moshe Shapiro also said it in one of his Maimorim, is brought down the sefer written from the Divrei Torah of the late great Baal Machshav Reb Moshe Shapiro. So, where are we holding here, Rabbi Isai? So the homosexuals are complaining because they don't even want to just be equivalent. They want extra. They want to elevate their fatinivtika stuff in marriage above heterosexual marriage. Okay? Get it straight. Now, there's something called the Coalition of Jewish Values. There's Jeff Adlerstein and Eitan Kobri, and they claim that they have 1,000 rabbis that they represent. They recently issued a statement that biblically we have to give the benefit of the doubt or whatever it is to Kavanaugh, and they're calling very nice for Kavanaugh to be voted in by the Senate. Now, this is very nice. They're doing something nice, but are they, this Coalition of Jewish Values, talking with consistency about the danger of accommodating evil in the voting or training the tzibur to protest legislation or calling on Aguda and the OU and other Orthodox groups by name to task them for accommodating all this evil? at this late stage in the developing culture? Methinks not. In other words, the Jewish coalition for values is a step forward, but it's a small step if they're not calling out things like I'm saying. If they're not talking practice, where the tire hits the road, where the rubber hits the road, are you allowed to go and vote for either Molinaro or Cuomo? If they can't bring themselves to instruct the tzibur, shame on them. You hear Rabbi Yoel Schoenfeld, I love you like mad, but shame on you guys if you're not going to do it. In other words, you're going to take these baby steps and play around. You got to come full force and say it like it is. It's prohibited to vote for any Dishmutz and you should use your training. You should have articles in the newspapers speaking about specific legislation and specific happenstances, not to speak in allgemein general ways. It's a no-brainer to speak about Kavanaugh. That's not what we need now. We need something stronger than that. Finally, Hamadiyah. In today's issue, this past Wednesday issue, Chag's issue, they had a very nice thing, a recap of the Yom Tov, etc., etc., and they brought out an idea that I don't know. That the Beis Yosef says that you take the ritlach, the branches of the Haishanas, and you use it for a kulmus, for a pen that used to dip in ink, not just a feather, but you could also use that as a kulmus to write Sifrei Torah. They said a very, very nice thing. But Hamadiyah is missing the forest from the trees. What is the Haishanas all about? Says the Chazal, the Haishana is Yosef, because the Haishana dries up quicker than all the other three minim. And Yosef was Komush. Yosef shriveled up. Yosef passed away 10 years earlier than the rest of his brothers. Okay? So, what was Yosef? Yosef was Kedushas HaYesoid. He's Yosef HaTzadik. He stood up for Yesoid. Guess what the Arava is? What's the beating of the Arava about? What is it about? It's about the Midah of Yesoid of Yosef. Arava, Ayin Reish, Beis Hey. The Beis Hey is like a Zion. So therefore, if it's like a Zion, it's Ayin Reish Zion, which is Zerah. You want to have holy children? You've got to be in control of your Yesoid. So at the pinnacle moment of Hoshana Rabbah, at the very conclusion of the whole service, what do? We beat the Hoshanas, the negative koiches of the Yetzer Hara and things having to do with morality. We beat it on the ground, like, in other words, the positive aspect of Yosef, the positive aspect of Zara Chaya V'Kayama, of conceived in holiness. You understand? So this Hamadiyah doesn't say. It's very nice. They'll tell us about using the Hoshana Rittel, the Beis Yosef, a very arcane fact that I wasn't aware of, and I thank them for making me aware of, to write a Sefer Torah. But what's the amkus of it? What's the depth of it? They won't go to the next step. Yeah, in order to write a Sefer Torah, in order to have Kedusha and Klal Yisrael of a Torah, you can't take the Esnan Zoyna money from the government, which is anti-Yisod, which is anti-Zera Shel Kedusha. That's what Daishan is telling us. You got to beat that garbage. Beat it down on the floor. That's what you have to do. You understand, Rabbi say? That Hamadiyah won't say. Tell me something. You think that Hamadiyah won't have to give Cheshbonis also after 120 years? You know how much the activists have to beg them, please put in this article, put in this. Half the time they will, they won't. They'll put it this, they'll couch it in such terms. It's because the Kinderlach, the Heilige Kinderlach. It's also a shtus. Maybe the Kinderlach should know. It's not sneers, it's not this. Maybe they should be trained. In other words, in England, they'll train the kids from when they're 6 years old to write love letters, proposals of homosexual marriage. There are big tzaddikim in Yaten Hamadiyah, the Heilige Kinderlach. And that's your excuse not to do. You think it's going to hold up in the next world? I don't think so. What did Rabbi say? In the last 11 minutes, this is the program 11 at 11, and the last 11 minutes I would like to devote to some Divrei Torah from this past Sukkot holiday. I want to just tell you like this. On Chav Gimel Shvat, or Chav Bei Shvat, I had a son, Betzalel, who turned 3 years old many years ago, 24 years ago or so, and we gave him an upsharing by the Linzerov. The very next day was a Friday. My wife went into the Beth Israel hospital. We took her into Beth Israel hospital. We had twins. And therefore, the first bris was on a Friday. It was a huge snowstorm 24 years ago. a huge snowstorm. We had to park the car in the middle of the street in Borough Park. The Lindsay Rov was the Sandik. And I said, if you kindness a kid, you enter a child into a bris and other, especially when you have twins, there's a ribuy of simcha, a multiplicity of simcha. So you got to give a name that reflects that. So I was thinking I should give one kid a name Simcha and one child a name Sasan. But that's a Sephardic name, and it would be very hard for an Ashkenazi boy to have a name Sasan. It would be like calling a boy Sue. There's a song or something about a boy who was called Sue from Susan. It's very odd. So I couldn't do that. So I decided at least I'm going to give one of them a name having to do with Simcha. So the first bris took place on the first day of Adar, which was Lamed Shvat, on a Friday, and I named him Simcha Zisel nach der Alt von Kelm. And the proof that a person has a little bit of divine inspiration, a little bit of Ruach HaKodesh, everybody who knows my Zia sweet Simcha Zisel knows he's sweet like sugar. He's tremendously personable. He's a good kind of sweetness. Now I want to tell you something else. This is what I chapped. Listen to the week before the Chasuna. Nothing is coincidental. Listen to the week before the Chasuna. Right now, when you're hearing this on the radio, is the waning hours of the Chasuna of Simcha Zisel. What was the week before? The week before was Shabbos Chol Hamoed, Sunday Hoshana Rabbah, Monday Shmini Atzeres, Tuesday Simchas Torah, Wednesday Isru Chag, Thursday is the Chasana night, and Friday and Shabbos is Shabbos Bereshis, which Bereshis is attached. You know, Bereshis is still attached to the Yom Tov. The bells that say Rachman Yichadish Aleinu Sashon Azel L'Tov L'Vracha through Shabbos Bereshis. Some of us don't need vinegar. We don't need vinegar until after Shabbos Bereshis for that reason, because it's still part of that whole Zman Simcha Seinu. So I don't think there's another week in the calendar year. I have a son, Tzvi Elimelech, from Pompadisa, who, when he got married the day after Yom Kippur. And I saw in the Swarm that that's a very dehoibin day, that's the time, Ben Yom Kippur and Sukkot, because it's Mechilas Avainis, you're pure, and you're between two major holidays. So that's the top time in the year to get married. And I saw that Rav Lezer Shach got married then, and the Shinav of the Divrei Yecheskel, the son of the Divrei Chaim, got married then. It's a very auspicious time. I dare say that this thing to get married right Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Bereshis and Shabbos Mevorchim also. And when you're still in Tishrei and you have all of those days leading up, it's perhaps the most unbelievable time of the year to get married. And the whole thing is, his name is Simcha, and the whole thing is Zeman Simcha Seinu. It's a moyudik chizik. Now, Simcha, of course, and the Kala are the main Bali Simcha. But they're not the only Bali Simcha. The parents have a halachic status as Bali Simcha, which means they can be, as I said at the outset of the program, they can be Mashpiyah Simcha also to a certain extent. So when Hashem does something, he multitasks. And he does it not only for one individual, but for the concentric ripple circles. I look at this as a chibuk v'nishuk from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I'm zeicha, that to have a simcha taking place at such a time. I'm profoundly grateful. I look at it as Hashem hugging and embracing me and my whole family. And I want to wish everybody ach tov v'chesed, only good to zachen for Yisrael, for Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Yisai, in the remaining moments, I want to tell you like this. Rosh Hashanah, by Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, the Svarim say, I don't know if it's based on the Zohar or not, no al-kah. The tzaddikim lock themselves up with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in seclusion, and they don't let in any of the makatragim, and that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu adjudicates Klal Yisrael in a positive way. I wanted to explain, I don't know if I said this last week or not. I might have said this already, but I want to add to it. That's why we have to build the sukkah. Perhaps that's part of the reason, not just to go mechol choil, but that's why we build the sukkah right after, shortly after Nila, after Marav, we build the sukkah. We start right away. Why? Because we have to contain all of that ruchnius. Nila is without walls. We have to quickly put it into a box, into a container. If not, it's going to dissipate. And that's what's going on over the 4 days. And you can make a Shechianu, according to the Gemara, Sukkah Memvav, you can make a Shechianu, and the Yerushalmi Paskins like that you do make a Shechianu on the building of a Sukkah. We say in the Mishnah Paskins that when you make the Shechianu the first night of Sukkot, you should have in mind 3 things. You should have in mind for the Zman Shachyon Kimon is Tesvav, so this is Zman of the Yontif, for the sitting in the sukkah, that you're inaugurating sitting in the sukkah, and for the building of the sukkah that you built for before Yontif. So you see that the etzem building of the sukkah is already tried Lemechsa Shishravi with Zman Simcha Seinu. The Simcha is Mechilas Avoinus, etc., etc. Then we have the entire seclusion of the 7 days, which we discussed previously. It's like a Shevi Brachos HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Parenthetically, I was zeicher to say, one of the last days of Sukkot, on Shmini Atzeres, it came to me, an epiphany. If we hold that the Beilas mitzvah, like so to speak, between Klal Yisrael and Kutcher Brichu takes place, which is Har Rishon, which is going back to our Madreg of Adam Rishon, and our ultimate union with God. So then what is the union that takes place Shmini Atzeres? Because Shmini Atzeres says, make me a small Suda, and I'll have Hana from you. And this form indicates that having Hana from you means that after the Suda, there's going to be the Yichud Shlim, there's going to be the conjugation, so to speak, Kaviyachal, between Kutcher Brichu and Klal Yisrael. But we already had the conjugation on the first day of Sukkot. So I was going to say, in the Hanami, biblically, Midaraisa, after the Bilas mitzvah, you have to count 7 days. And the 8th day, she's tahar again. It's only midrabanan we have more days. So, strictly biblically, Torah speaking, Shmini Atzeres is the next conjugation. That's the first conjugation. That's the second conjugation, which is not the Bilas mitzvah of the night of Chasuna V'Kala, but it's the second conjugation, which is the first conjugation of the rest of their lives, is Chasuna V'Kala. That's what Shmini Atzeres is. So, Rabbi Say, we want to be able to get to a madrega of Ne'ilah without walls. We should still be able to hold on to our unique relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Simcha, to the Mechilas Avoinus, etc., etc. So on Sukkot, we have to contain it. After a full cycle of 7 days, on the 8th day, we're ready to move, to take all our stuff from the Sukkah into the house, like the furniture, the kelim, etc., and they're all impregnated with the kedusha that we absorbed in our unique relationship, approximate relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the sukkah, all the high machshavas, the divrei Torah, the yearning for Hashem, the zemiras, etc., the divrei Torah, etc. But it's too much. It's too much. It's a culture shock. How do we go from being secluded in the sukkah for all these days? All of a sudden, we're out there in public with all the siren calls of the schmutz, of the garbage. How do we deal with it? So that's why we have Simchas Torah at Shmini Atzeres. We do a Scotch guard. You know what Scotch guard is? When you waterproof something, you protect it. You protect it to Scotch guard it. So that's what we do here. We take the Sefer Torah, we make 7 akofas. The 7 akofas, we're surrounding all the avodah that we did with the lulav and the esrog and the haishanis, all the 7 days in akofas. Then we're now using the Sefer Torah to surround it. And then after that, and concomitant with that, and after that, we're ready to go into a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu without any walls, and we still hold on to it. Okay? That's what this is all about. I want to tell you that a similar thing is happening by the chuppah. The chuppah is just like there was Hashras Hashchina by Ne'ilah. Just like there was Hashras Hashchina in the sukkah. Chal Shem Shemayim ala Chagiga, on the Chag itself, Shem Shemayim is Chal on the Sukkah, because Hashras Hashchina Mamish. And then we continue to take that Hashras Hashchina when we take it indoors in Shmini Atzeres, and we dance with the Sefer Torah, and we now have a closer new relationship with Hashem Hashras Hashchina. And that's what's happening at the chuppah. That's what happened tonight. When you hear this, it'll already have happened. In Yitz Hashem Simcha Zisul's chuppah with the kala, it's so to speak without walls. It's just a chuppah. It's under the sky. It's the concept of Hashras Hashchina. Okay? And what we're doing in this world, the Chasuna V'Kala, creates a yichud shlim between Kutcher Brichu and Shchinte and different things that we can't understand between Kutcher Brichu and Klal Yisrael. And that's why it was so holy that Rechaim Sanza couldn't even look up at the sky. He couldn't even look up by a chuppah because he felt Hashras Hashchina. Let us hope in Yitz Hashem that we should be zoicha, each and every one of us, to concentric ripple circles of simcha that emoted, that extended from Zman Simcha Seinu for the Yerech HaYisonim, and we be all zoicha to pray and many simchas, and we be zoicha to have refuas and yeshuas and a shnas parnosa and a shnas of standing up for morality and decency, This is Keneged Kulam. If you do this and you lift up the banner of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you take the message of Hashanah and Aravos with you throughout the year. You should be Zoich, each and every one of us, to Zara Chayvek Hayoma, and to be a Nachas Ruach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Until we meet again, our Guten Talmud, thank you very much for listening. And spread the word, Rabbi say, about this program, and spread the word about the hotline. Let me give you that number one last time, 641-715-3900, extension 247656. Until we meet again, a Guten Talmud.